and a mutual colleague. Kezia introduced Chris and Val. They met in a cafeteria the same day, saying, "This is Val, the researcher who needs your help." Chris grinned, introduced himself, and from that moment a partnership formed and a romance quickly blossomed. While in Brazil, Chris co-authored several publications with Val, contributing to improving food security and sanitisation for rural communities all along the Amazon River. For a year, Chris returned to the UK, but they maintained in contact via letters. A marriage proposal followed shortly, and they were married in wedding. Together, they pursued PhDs, published further studies, and balanced living in the UK and Brazil while raising a family. Chris and Val had a son, Thomas Lawrence Eve, named after Chris's grandfather. He was born when Val was 33. Both Laurie and Thomas benefited from their parents' intercontinental life, developing a love for Brazil and also learning Portuguese language. A world of opportunity opened up for the family, sparked by Chris's courage and venture to go outside his comfort zone. Professionally, Chris's curiosity and his intelligence led to a wide range in his career. The PhD focused on interspecies cooperation with plant life, an area initially dismissed by many peers. But he championed this for 7 years before gaining any recognition. Although soil science offered limited job opportunities, he applied his expertise in systems engineering for the Ministry of Defence, working on major projects including radio communications and submarines. However, it must be said that family remained the centre of Chris's life. He often acted as a link that held everyone together, despite the demands of his career and the physical distance of many family members. One project particularly close to his heart later in years was a solar energy business in Brazil, which brought together Laurie, Val, Franchos and Thomas. They shared an endeavour reflecting Chris's values and his hope for a sustainable future. Chris loved his siblings dearly, although he sometimes regretted not being more present in their life, particularly in his younger years. He cherished catching up with his sister Catherine and his brother William. Loved to share many funny stories from his childhood, also with his son Thomas. Chris was immensely proud of his sons Laurie and Thomas. He was deeply devoted to his wife, Val. Their love and their partnership endured for 41 years. He also adored his grandchildren, Tristan, Finlay and Elijah, who all brought him great joy. As we remember Chris and all that he brought to our lives, I invite us now at the end of the eulogy to take 2 moments in quiet reflection. Let's hold Chris in our hearts, recall the laughter, perhaps memories you have, the stories and the love that he shared, and honour the life of a truly remarkable man. Let's pause together for a few moments in quiet reflection as you send your love. Thank you. At this point, I would like to invite Chrissy forward who's going to share a piece of literature in memory of Chris.
Chris had wonderfully eclectic reading tastes, and as you'll all know, usually had his nose in a book. Over the years, he shared those books with us, and we're lucky to have many inscribed volumes on our shelves that remind us of him. When Chris stayed with us for a few months, we exchanged books back and forth and occasionally disagreed, good-naturedly, about the merits of one author or another. But on one point we were always in agreement: the brilliance of Sir Terry Pratchett. In fact, Chris was rereading Small Gods before he passed away. This passage from Terry Pratchett felt appropriate for today. No one is finally dead until the ripples they cause in the world die away, until the clock he wound up winds down, until the wine he has made has finished its ferment, until the crop they planted is harvested. The span of someone's life is only the core of their actual existence.
Thank you very much. And I would now like to invite Thomas and Laurie forward to share some personal memories and reflections.
So I wanted to share a few brief stories that I think highlight some of the most powerful memories I have of Dad, which I hope serve to celebrate his character. First, our time sailing together. Some of my earliest and fondest memories are from sailing with Dad on board Privateer. We would go and stay with Grandad and Patricia in London before we all headed to the Blackwater to stay on the boat for a few days or sometimes weeks at a time, and these were the happiest of my memories. When I was quite small, Dad would pick me up, sometimes meeting me on a train, later by car, earlier by hitchhiking. And on our journeys, I would ask endless questions on the origin of life, the universe, and everything. And Dad would at great length explain all the theories he knew on the subject, always encouraging my curiosity and challenging my thinking. So there were some pretty profound discussions for a small child, but he never dulled it down to a childish level, and I was always amazed at how much he knew, something which I still remain in awe to this day. And when we were on board, Dad, Grandad and Patricia would teach me to sail, to tie knots, to row, and most importantly, how to scrape barnacles off the hull and reapply anti-fouling, particularly in the places that only a small child could reach. And when the evenings were clear, we'd bed down, in the folks' pipe cots, with the hatch open to look at the stars and listen to the curlews. And it was great to go full circle and take Dad out on my boat, Sonia, a couple of years ago, and he was staying with us in Devon. Second, our mutual careers in defence. I announced to my dad that I was joining the Marines about 2 weeks before I started young officer training. I knew he was quite against the armed forces, and as expected, he wasn't happy, being quite concerned for me joining up. But I said, "Don't worry, Dad, it's not like we're going to war anytime soon. That never happens these days." Well, 2 weeks later, I arrived at Lympstone, and 2 weeks after that, 9/11 happened, triggering quite a busy time. But there was never any element of, "I told you so," or anything like that, and he supported me when I needed it. And I think it was a proud day for both of us when I passed out. And not long after I joined up, despite Dad earlier being quite anti-military, he actually started using his systems engineering skills in defence contracting. And that's something which he did extraordinarily well. And I enjoyed our many conversations over the years, right up until our last, on the projects he worked on From Bowman radios to tanks to frigates and submarines and back to tanks. And without sharing the details, which in typical Dad fashion he swore me to secrecy, I honestly believe that in several instances he demonstrated exceptional moral courage to call out when things were going wrong and forcing changes which I've no doubt have or will save the lives of those still serving. And I'm very proud of him for this. And lastly, more recently, as a granddad. After leaving London, he came to stay with Chrissy, me, Tristan and Finley in our home in Devon. The boys were quite small, and seeing him with them reminded me very much of how I felt when I was around him at their age. He was funny and silly, doing impressions, pretending to scream as a baby at full volume in public, and the boys found this hilarious, as I did when I was their age. Though as a teenager when he was still doing it, I do remember being highly embarrassed. He read them bedtime stories at every opportunity, still able to do the most comic impersonations, the characters complete with full accents, actions, and of course, at full volume. Nobody could read a bedtime story like Dad could. Chris and I both hugely appreciated the babysitting. But it also reminded me when he was doing impressions and getting into character at full volume in public, he was never embarrassed by anything or ashamed. Just totally at ease at the comforts in the moment. He didn't care what others around us thought. He just cared about those of us lucky enough to be in his company. And I think that was a truly admirable characteristic. I love spending time with you, Dad, talking to you. About anything and everything, and I will miss you.
First of all, I just want to say thanks to everyone for coming at such short notice. I also want to reach out and thank the relatives who are watching this on live stream, particularly in Brazil. Meus parentes lá. I'm going to talk to them in Portuguese very quickly just to thank them for watching this. Deus te abençoe. Pai amava vocês. Tá? I want to share just two very quick anecdotes that I think really encapsulate Dad's character and personality, and the way he reacted in these situations taught me what it's like to be a good father and a good husband. So the first anecdote I want to share with you is titled The Gypsy Encounter. So one day when I was 5 years old, I was in Milton Keynes having a bike ride with him, and we stumbled across an Irish traveller camp. And as we got closer, as we were going past it, a dog came out from one of the caravans and approached us very gently with its tail wagging. But all of a sudden, the dog bit Dad with no warning on his thigh, and he screamed in pain and said some swear words that I never heard before. And one of the Irish travellers popped his head out the caravan to see what was going on, and Dad immediately confronted him, angry in a way I've never seen before. And he said, "Why isn't that dog on a lead?" The man just simply denied the dog belonged to him as the dog returned to the caravan. When we got home, Dad told Mum what happened, and we immediately took him to the hospital for a checkup. And on the way there, I asked him, "So are you going to report this to the police? Because that you got assaulted?" And he said, "No, I'm not going to do that." And I asked him why. And he said that the Irish travellers of the UK have always been oppressed and they're always getting discriminated. He didn't want to add more fuel to the fire and make their life more miserable. And I really admired how he just turned the other cheek like that and not bear a grudge and just move on and forgive them. And he had this tendency sometimes with other situations when people would steal from us or steal from him. And you just think, oh, just let them do it. They need this stuff more than we do. And I always admired that. He was never petty. He was always very empathetic. And I've tried to live similarly, not too much success. The second anecdote I have for you today is called Road Rage in Hampstead. So one day we were driving up to see Betty, and we were going through Well Walk. And for those of you who know, Well Walk is a notoriously very narrow two-way road. And on the other side of us, as we were going to Flask Walk, was a red Ferrari. And the car refused to stop in a space where we could pass through, which led to a standoff with Mum driving. I was 8 years old when this happened, and Dad just gracefully got out the car and very calmly approached the Ferrari and explained to the driver, "Please, sir, would you mind moving out the way? It's our right of way here." The driver refused and asked us to do a 90-degree turn into someone else's front garage. Dad, again patiently, said, "Well, look, sir, it's our right of way, as I just said." And the guy just interrupted him and kept on insisting that he parks into someone else's garage. And at that moment, Dad, with his arms crossed, just exploded from his calm voice to shouting, "Look, mate, I already told you. Go back now. Do as you're told. Now." And I can't mimic how much anger came from his voice. He exploded, and all the neighbours heard in Well Walk. The driver of the Ferrari immediately, without hesitation, reversed all the way to the end of Well Walk, which wasn't even necessary to get out of the way for Dad. And he got back into the car, calmly and triumphantly. And as we passed the Ferrari, in a really unnecessary way, he just did this upper class, a bit camp voice. I can't mimic it, unfortunately. And just said, "Why, thank you, dear," with his fingers. If you think that was a bit unnecessary, it's because it was. But when he ever needed to protect his family and defend his family, he was ready to do that. So I think these stories are really good because they encapsulate how he was forgiving of people, but also how he was firm when he needed to be. And finally, I'd like to close off my part to address someone specifically who's watching us from Brazil, my son Elijah. So this is a message for Elijah. So, Caetano Elijah, I know you may not fully understand what is happening right now. And despite the fact that you never had a chance to meet Grandad in person, I want you to know that he loved you dearly. Every video call he's had with you, every audio we sent to him made his day. If you ever wondered why your own daddy is goofy and somewhat childish compared to the other dads around you, it's because Grandad played with me in the same way I always played with you. To quote the words of his favourite playwright, George Bernard Shaw, we don't stop playing because we grow old. We grow old because we stop playing. Although Grandad is gone now, his impact on our lives and his legacy still lives on through you, Caetano Elijah, and your cousins, Tristan and Finley. I hope to see you three grow up and become good friends in the future. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Can I ask you please to be upstanding only if it's safe to do so? Chris, your journey here on earth has come to its close. Today we honour your life, and although we feel the sorrow of your leaving, we hold your memory close in our hearts. As we commit your body to be cremated, we send you with love and with our best wishes on the next stage of your journey, to be reunited with loved ones gone before them. May your family and friends find comfort in the memories. May they support one another and draw strength from the love that you gave so freely. And may your presence always be remembered to continue to divide and also guide, inspire them in the days, the weeks, the months to come. Please be seated. We feel the sadness of Chris's passing. We feel that deeply, that sense of loss. We feel in our hearts. But if we know anything about Chris, it is this. He would not want to be remembered with sadness alone. He would want smiles. He would want some laughter. And he would want you to recall all the good times, the conversations, the humour, the moments that made life richer because he was part of it. So if you can, please gently turn your grief slightly towards gratitude, not in denial of your loss, but alongside it, rather than holding on to what's been taken away. Hold on to what you've been given. The knowledge, the wit, the individuality, the compassion, and the time you spent with Chris. Be thankful having walked that part of this journey with Chris. And now we come to the end of the service, but before we finish, I'd just like to say a few important matters. Firstly, a warm thank you to everyone for being here for today, for your comfort, your smile, your kindness, and all the support during this difficult time. I also want to extend the thanks to Owen at Giant Grays and also the staff here at the crematorium. Charity donations are most welcome on your way out of the crematorium to support cancer research, if appropriate. And last, you're warmly invited to join the family after the service at Instour Hotel. It's on Main Street in Instour. There'll be an opportunity for you to share your own memories of Chris and spend time together in a more informal setting. As you leave today, may you carry a sense of peace, love and connection, knowing you've come together to honour and say goodbye to Chris. Please take care of yourselves, take care of one another in the days ahead. And now, to close our time together, as we take leave, we'll hear a piece of music. It's called Log Cabin Home in the Sky.